Tonight, the exit from Gaza on pause as Canadians wait for a window to escape the fighting. A lifeline to the outside world in limbo.
He reaches the border, nothing.
Departure strategies plagued by shifting plans.
It'll be a happy day when they're allowed to leave Gaza.
A powerful earthquake rips through Nepal. The damage. And the staggering death toll.
Tragically, these medical systems are overwhelmed.
Plus the doors to a secret room open to the public.
Some people think that this is the room where Michelangelo sheltered in 1530.
Long hidden works of art finally see the light.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Good evening. A frustrating day for Canadians trapped in Gaza. The Rafah border crossing into Egypt was closed, and plans for foreign and dual nationals to get out Sunday might also be in jeopardy. Today, a new round of explosions. The IDF releasing video of heavy shelling and Israeli forces inside the Gaza Strip. The military wing of Hamas releasing its own footage, claiming its men are firing at military tanks. But the overriding concern is Gaza's humanitarian crisis, with no movement on a ceasefire or a pause in hostilities 4 weeks after the massacre by Hamas inside Israel. CTV's Colton Prail has our report.
For days, these buses have meant salvation for foreign nationals in Gaza. An escape across the Rafah border that's already taken more than 1,000 people into Egypt. But today, it closed without warning.
There's a possibility we will not pass tomorrow because now the people that are on the list today, they're going to have to try tomorrow again. Oh God, this is just, no, it's just a nightmare, another nightmare.
Global Affairs is aware of reports that 2 Canadians have crossed already, but there are more than 400 still waiting to get into Egypt. This as urban warfare in northern Gaza intensifies. Israeli forces are encircling Gaza City. There's mounting international concern over surging civilian casualties. Arab leaders are calling for an immediate ceasefire, decrying Israel's response, but the United States says it would only give Hamas time to regroup.
We believe pauses can be a critical mechanism for protecting civilians, for getting aid in, for getting foreign nationals out, while still enabling Israel to achieve its objective, to defeat Hamas.
Today, several people sheltering at this United Nations school were killed after airstrikes hit the Jabalia refugee camp. This young boy describing the attack says, "I carried a decapitated body with my own hands." Just south of that, the Palestinian Red Crescent reporting 21 people were injured after an airstrike near the entrance of the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City. The Israeli military describing its offensive as the full force of its troops. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu today about efforts to get Canadians out of Gaza. While Israel assured it would happen over the coming days, Canadians who were told they could leave as early as tomorrow are now uncertain. Sandy.
Colton, thank you. And for those Canadians in limbo in Gaza, an agonizing wait to get out. The delay also taking a toll on their families in Canada. CTV's Tony Grace now on a day of heightened emotions.
At rallies across the country today, the Palestinian youth movement repeated its message.
There are protests in almost 30 cities in Canada where everyone is saying the same thing. We need to call for an immediate ceasefire.
They demanded more action from political leaders. And so did the loved ones of Canadians in Gaza, who are now on the list to get across into Egypt at the Rafah border crossing.
It was 3 a.m. We got a call from the Foreign Affairs saying his name is on the list.
Ola's uncle wants to leave Gaza, but she says a lack of clarity from the federal government is making him wary of taking the risky trip to Rafah.
Imagine you're asking your family member to go and then something happens to them. How would I feel? How can the Canadian government guarantee that these Canadian citizens, once they receive the call for them to evacuate, that they will be safe, there will be no shelling, no bombardment?
It'll be a happy day for a lot of people when those Canadians who have been living through this hell for many days, when they're allowed to leave Gaza.
The plight of those Canadians also being echoed by a Jewish community group at this rally.
Everyone in that land deserves security, deserves economic rights, and deserves to be treated with dignity.
A push for peace at a time when it seems so elusive.
It's important to support people because for us, never again means never again for anyone.
Global Affairs confirms that a team of Canadian consular officials is on the ground tonight near Rafah and that they're ready to move over to that border crossing and help as quickly as possible, just as soon as they get the green light from local authorities. Sandy.
Tony, thank you. The IDF today released more video of the October 7 mass murder at the Nova Music Festival. Now, the images you're about to see are chilling. The terror palpable in the shaking hand of an Israeli soldier as he checks for signs of life. Holding a gun, he asks in Hebrew, "If there's anyone here, please answer me." And then... There are fatalities, he says. They've all been killed. Everyone in the stage area has been killed. The team of first responders moved section by section, finding bodies everywhere. More than 260, mostly young people, were gunned down here. Now, the Israel-Hamas war is shifting the world's attention away from another one in Ukraine, according to that country's president.
Good morning.
Volodymyr Zelensky made the comment while hosting the head of the European Union, which Ukraine is trying to join.
I want to tell you how impressed we are by the reforms you've made in the midst of a war.
In the past day alone, Russian forces have bombed dozens of cities and towns. Now, parts of Nepal look like a war zone tonight. A powerful earthquake killed more than 150 people. Many more are wounded or still trapped in the rubble. CTV's Rahim Ladani reports.
Hospitals in Nepal have quickly become overrun with the hundreds of people who have been injured after a devastating earthquake shook the northwest part of the country. I was fast asleep, this man says, when all of a sudden it started shaking violently. I tried to run, but the whole house collapsed. I tried escaping, but half my body got buried in the debris. The quake registered a magnitude of 5.6, crushing homes, trapping entire families under mounds of rubble. The death toll has risen to at least 157 people and will likely rise further as rescue crews search for survivors.
The needs are so incredible because it is a very remote, isolated area of Nepal that has just been overwhelmed.
This is the deadliest earthquake in the region since 2015, when nearly 9,000 people were killed. Relief operations are ramping up to provide those displaced with beds, food, and basic necessities.
We're just evaluating now if we need to put Canadian boots on the ground to go and help. If we're needed and we feel that we can do a lot, our people are on the way.
And will effort to get as much aid to the affected areas.
While earthquakes are common in the mountainous region of Nepal, this quake's powerful strength was also felt in India's capital of New Delhi, more than 800 kilometers away. Rahim Ladani, CTV News, Toronto.
Well, Canada's premiers are on their way to Halifax tonight for a two-day summit aimed at solving the country's healthcare crisis. CTV's Jesse Thomas has a preview.
Advancing healthcare innovation tops the agenda as provincial and territorial leaders gather in Halifax for a two-day healthcare summit. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston is chair of the Council of the Federation. He seeks to address the interprovincial recruitment of healthcare workers, especially doctors, viewing it as counterintuitive He's directed his recruitment team to stop.
I'm not a fan of trying to go to another province and recruit some of their healthcare professionals.
Opposition leader Zach Churchill questions Houston's intention to restrict recruitment efforts while Nova Scotia deals with a healthcare worker shortage.
We've got more people dying in the ERs unnecessarily because they're waiting for services that they need. We've got people that have been waiting up to 7 hours or more with stroke symptoms and heart attack symptoms.
The NDP has trust in the recruitment strategy but urges stronger emphasis on worker retention.
They need to start with making the workers here at home feel valued, well compensated, and working in environments where they are able to do their job.
Dr. Paula Keating, a family physician and president of the New Brunswick Medical Society, notes that interprovincial recruitment will continue as long as provinces manage healthcare, but agrees that a national strategy could be helpful.
If nationally we look at trying to improve medical school seats, residency training positions across the country, and also work together to attract international medical graduates.
Houston aims to recruit healthcare professionals from regions with comparable credentialing standards, like other Commonwealth countries and in parts of India and the Philippines. And although it's not officially on the agenda, Alberta's desire to back out of the Canada Pension Plan and the carbon tax are two issues that will likely see a lot of debate, either formally or informally. Meetings between Canada's premiers begin Sunday here in Halifax and continue Monday. Sandy?
Jesse, thank you for this. After her alleged Indigenous roots were discredited, a former high-profile Saskatchewan judge has been removed from the Order of Canada at her own request. Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafon made claims about a Cree ancestry and certain academic accomplishments, none of which match public records. A number of awards and honorary university degrees have also been rescinded. Voting has begun on a new contract for 8,200 auto workers in Brampton and Windsor, Ontario. The union says a tentative 3-year contract with leading automaker Stellantis includes hourly wage increases of nearly 20% for production and 25% for skilled trades. Results of the vote are expected Tuesday. The majority of 360 unionized workers on the St. Lawrence Seaway voted to officially approve a new deal. The collective agreement raises wages by 13% over 3 years. The 8-day strike shut down the flow of goods and cost more than $1 billion along one of Canada's busiest trading routes. And more than 30 years after the devastating collapse of the Atlantic cod fishery, there are new signs of life. Scientists now believe Newfoundland's northern cod stock has moved out of the critical zone. And as CTV's Garrett Barry found out, it could mean another chance for an industry that defined a province.
It's been over 30 years since cod was king off the coast of Newfoundland. Legend has it was once so plentiful you could fish it out of the water with a bucket.
When I started work with the union a long time ago, almost every community in this province processed cod.
But decades of over-reliance and overfishing pushed this stock to a near total collapse. In 1992, Ottawa imposed a ban on most commercial cod fishing. It was the single biggest layoff in Canadian history. 30,000 out of work.
Effective at midnight tonight, there will be a moratorium on harvest.
Now, for the first time in a generation, encouraging news.
It is a great cause for celebration. It's the best news we've had in 31 years.
What's changed is something called a limit reference point. Essentially, it's not like the scientists went back into the water and found a whole bunch more fish there than they were expecting. What they did was go back in time, look at more data from longer ago, and when they examined that data, they concluded that the amount of fish that's in the ocean right now, well, that's a better sign than we've previously understood.
And it could lead to the reopening of this industry one day.
Longer seasons, more money in the communities, less dependence.
Others need more convincing.
Fuel now at $2 a litre and bait has, gone up 5 times what it used to be 3 years ago. It's just very difficult to make money when you're still getting prices for fish that you got 30 years ago.
Jason Sullivan helps run a restaurant. He's also permitted to catch a small amount of cod.
Sometimes we're after paying $9 a pound. But what pisses me off about it is that I know that the fishermen that caught that fish only got 90 cents, right?
That's why fishery advocates are calling for a whole new approach, one that will increase the value of this product and take in more cash if the industry opens up again.
We've seen it before, and the potential is there now to do it again and do it properly this time.
Garrett Berry, CTV News, Bay Bulls.
Coming up, honor among soldiers.
Nobody's really fully aware of the contributions that are made.
A sacred circle to commemorate a shared history. Plus, Italy lets art lovers in on a centuries-old secret. Indigenous veterans who served in conflicts with both the Canadian and American military were honored today in an annual ceremony of remembrance. CTV's Stéphane Giroux was there.
For the past century, Indigenous nations have contributed to Canada's and the United States military.
There's always been a saying when I was in the military, if we don't serve, we have no voice.
The Mohawk Legion of Ganawake holds its annual Remembrance Day ceremony every November. Except here, the focus isn't only on Canada's veterans.
For Indigenous people, we don't identify with borders or land. So for us to fight with Canadians or Americans is part of North America. We're all from North America. We're all in Turtle Island. So for us, we can support both.
Both national anthems were sung. And the first wreath was laid down by the U.S. Consul General. During the First World War, up to 4,000 members of the First Nations belonged mostly to the 107th Timberwolf Battalion and the 114th Brox Ranger Battalion. Thousands more would serve not only in World War II, but also in Korea, Vietnam, the Balkans, and Afghanistan, bringing along their own cultural contribution.
We don't make up most of the military, but we do overrepresent the military. And throughout history, nobody's really fully aware of the contributions that are made.
The veterans here say their sacrifice is also part of their contribution to Canada's nation building. Stéphane Giroux, CTV News in Ganawake.
Still ahead, a secret no longer. A hidden bunker holds the key to a Renaissance riddle. A mysterious chamber that may have been the secret hiding place of one of Italy's greatest artists will soon open to the public. CTV's Bill Fortier takes us on a tour of a centuries-old hideaway and the works of art adorning the walls.
Down a steep staircase, this narrow room with just one small window is the perfect place to hide. And it's believed one of the most famous artists of all time did just that here nearly 500 years ago, underneath what's now a museum. Michelangelo had drawn the fury of the ruling Medici family, once his patrons, by supporting an uprising against them. Pope Clement VII, a member of the Medicis, ordered his death.
People believe that this was the very room cited by sources as being the Michelangelo rescue place, refuge.
Within the room, discovered in 1975 through a trap door under layers of plaster, sketches were found on the walls that appear similar to famous works by Michelangelo, including some of the images on his signature masterpiece, the Sistine Chapel ceiling. But whether the master artist really did the doodles is the subject of fierce debate.
So it's hard to tell who is right and who is wrong. I think that the argument will be reinvigorated as we open the room to the public.
That will happen for the first time later this month under specialized lighting to avoid damage to the sketches.
So it has been an ongoing project for a few years, but we are glad that starting in the middle of November, the room can open to the public with all the due precautions.
Getting in won't be easy. Only 100 people will get access per week, 4 at a time, for a maximum of 15 minutes. Bill Fortier, CTV News, Edmonton.
Wow, 15 minutes to take in timeless works. And on that note, a quick reminder to set your clocks back an hour before bed. Daylight saving time ends at 2 a.m. in most of the country. After the break, some final thoughts as I say goodbye to anchoring weekends. And hello to a new assignment with CTV National News. Before we say goodnight, I want to say something to you, our wonderful viewers. If you haven't already heard, starting Monday, November the 13th, I will be anchoring a brand new early evening CTV National newscast from Monday to Friday at 5:30 p.m., a companion to the 11 p.m. newscast with Omar Sachedina. It's a brand new chapter for me, and I'm really excited about it. But after spending Saturdays and Sundays with you for many, many, many decades, I find myself getting sentimental. This is my last weekend newscast. A lot has happened since I started here on weekends on February the 9th, 1985. I've changed, you've changed, the world has changed.
CTV News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening.
Scientists are looking for a reason for the explosion that destroyed the Space Shuttle Challenger.
The Blue Jays have done their patriotic duty and won baseball's World Series. The jury was shown the infamous videotape of Rodney King from South Africa today. The multiracial government would be responsible for overseeing the end of apartheid. We've opened a location on the World Wide Web on the internet. A nation shocked by the horrible death of its favorite princess, Diana.
She was the people's princess.
The worst ice storm in Canadian history loosened its grip on the eastern part of the country. To New York now, where the desperate search for victims continues and the city gathers in grief. U.S.-led forces push ahead with their relentless campaign to drive Saddam Hussein from power, allowing gays to legally marry.
Please be seated.
It was a very busy first day of business for the Obama administration. A dramatic announcement from the U.S. Osama bin Laden is dead. Waves of grief are washing across the country tonight over that catastrophic bus crash in small-town Saskatchewan. It was carrying members of the Humboldt Broncos. A man in his 50s is under quarantine tonight, believed to be Canada's first case of the mysterious new coronavirus. It's our capital! Now the push to impeach the U.S. president. Charles is officially king, and his kingdom is in a state of grief and uncertainty. That is our newscast for this Saturday. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. I'm Sandy Ronaldo.
I'm Sandy Ronaldo. For all of us here at CTV News, thank you for joining us.
With Sandy Ronaldo.
Wow, we've been through so much together. You know, of course, that nothing is ever done in isolation. It takes a village of talented journalists, producers, writers, editors, and production staff to put together this newscast. But in the end, if you are not watching, we are just talking to each other. So in saying goodnight for the last time on a weekend newscast, and by the way, soon enough, there will be another familiar face in this chair, I can't thank you enough for sharing all those years with me. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. This is not goodbye, it's see you soon.
Canadians have turned to CTV National News for more than 60 years.
And now there's a new national newscast at 5:30.
It's more of the news you trust.
More of the experience you rely on.
Watch Canada's #1 national news now at 5:30 and 11.